Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Multiple Sclerosis Association of America's webcast, Yoga and MS. Start where you are. My name is Peter Demiri. I am the Vice President of Programs and Services for MSAA and will be your host for this program. At this time, I would like to introduce our guest presenter, Kimberly Castello. Kimberly is a clinically trained yoga therapist who creates wellness programs for chronic disease management. And in 2017, Kimberly created the MS Yoga program for the Cleveland Clinic Lou Rouveau Center for Brain Health. We are very excited to have Kimberly here to present for us today. Before we begin, I just wanted to touch on MSAA's programs and services. As you may know, MSAA's mission is to improve lives today, and we do so through our free programs and services. Listed here are just some of the many services we offer to the MS community. Please take the opportunity to visit our website or give us a call to learn more. And for this program, it is important to note that the information presented here is for general purposes and does not constitute medical advice. Individuals are urged to consult their physician prior to the start of any exercise program or routine. So at this time, it is my pleasure to welcome Kimberly to the program and have her present on yoga and MS.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you having me, and thank you to the MSAA for hosting this. I'm really excited to be here to talk about how yoga can assist in MS. Let's start with what is yoga and yoga therapy. So yoga is really a set of practices. I'm going to kind of advance here for a moment. And there's some misconceptions here, I truly believe, about yoga, and I think it can be a little scary sometimes because we see these fancy pictures of people, doing headstands and handstands and kind of twisting into pretzels. It's sort of well known and even a joke in a lot of out there movies and TV shows today. And I'm glad that it's out there and that we at least have yoga as a tool. But because of these misconceptions, I think there are a lot of us that don't feel that we have the opportunity to practice yoga and integrate it into our day. So one of the things I'd really like to do today is talk about how you can use yoga in your daily life, in your daily routine, and it can be extremely helpful, and it doesn't have to be necessarily doing something complicated or scary or something that looks complicated in the sense of you're doing a posture that is overwhelming. And it can be very overwhelming if you just looked at the pictures or an average class that's out there. So a lot of what I want to talk about is, again, what is yoga? So it's different things for different people. But for me, yoga is truly a mindset. It's how you feel in your body. It's the relationship that we have with ourselves, mind and body. And for me, I feel like it's an opportunity to learn breathing techniques that reduce stress in our body. And that stress can be physical stress. It can be emotional stress. And there's so much physical and emotional stress that comes from living with and managing a chronic illness. And that being said, it also helps to increase our energy. And we know that our energy dips throughout the day with MS, and typically later in the day, and especially when there's heat involved. So I'd like to show you some things and talk about some things that could help with that. And also, yoga offers therapeutic movements that can increase our flexibility, our strength, and our balance. And I come back to, again, these movements that we've seen over the years. We hear about these famous poses called down dogs, or planks are a very famous pose in yoga as well as in fitness classes. And I want to show you ways you can accomplish the same benefits that you've seen in these pictures, but without doing something that can be harmful to the body, that can be strenuous on the body, or that can just overwhelm us and make us feel like we don't have the ability to do it. So that's what yoga is for me. And I just want to share that so that you feel like you can do this and integrate it into your day. because I think that if we have these small tools and we feel successful at it, I think that we will find a way to bring it into our daily routine. And it's important to do something that we like doing, that we feel is feasible, that we feel we can make time for, and most importantly, that's going to give us benefits. So I know if I am doing something and I'm finding that I'm feeling better and I'm able to make the time for it, I'm going to keep showing up and doing it. So I want to go back to this previous slide of what yoga therapy is. So as Peter mentioned, I'm a yoga therapist, and I'm registered with the International Association of Yoga Therapy. And yoga therapy is the process of empowering individuals to progress toward improved health and well-being through the application of the philosophy and practice of yoga. So it's kind of a big statement. So what does that actually mean? So I'm going to come back to that yoga for me is a mindset, and I myself have learned to manage a chronic disease, which is why I'm so passionate about showing up here for all of you today, because the tools that came from yoga for me have really helped me learn to just get back to what I felt like was kind of a normal life for myself. And as we know, chronic illness, it kind of takes that from us. Initially, we feel like we're losing a sense of control in our body and in our mind. And for me, this has been a real support system. And movements in yoga can be therapeutic, but they have to be presented, in my opinion, in a way that works for each person's body. And that changes day to day. It changes sometimes minute to minute, which we all know. If you're living with MS, you know how different you can feel on a day-to-day basis. And it's not fun. It's frustrating. And I think that it's okay to give ourselves permission to be frustrated, and then to step back and then say, what tools are out there? What can I put into my toolbox? What resources are available to me so that I can find a way to feel like myself again and to gain some sense of control of what this new norm that's been dealt to me. So I want to say that I want to encourage everyone to look through these slides, take the time to go back through them and see what works for you, and just recognize and be okay with it. Maybe something that you see on here today may not resonate with you this moment, but it might the next day or the next week. And you might have a day where you want to do a little more or to do a little less. And I think the most important thing is that we show up for ourselves. We offer ourselves some time every day, even if it's just a few minutes, to look at how we're feeling, and then pick movements, pick breath work that makes us feel good in the moment. If it's not working, if we don't feel good about it, then we step away from it and we look at doing something else. So in yoga therapy, we believe in looking at how we're feeling on a day-to-day basis and then meeting ourselves where we are and starting exactly where we are in that moment. And that's not always an easy thing to do, but I think when we allot ourselves the opportunity and the patience to do so, we can surprise ourselves. And we realize that there is a lot that we can do, and it doesn't have to look like the pictures that I was describing earlier. It doesn't have to look like the videos that you see out there. There is so much more to yoga, and it doesn't have to just be a movement, and it doesn't have to look like what anyone else is doing. It just has to feel good for you. So I have to say, you know your body better than anyone, so I invite you and I offer to you to listen to how you're feeling. And when you need to rest, rest. When you feel like you have some energy to do some of these movements, and it might just be a breathing technique, and that's all you do for the day, I think that's fantastic. So this is an opportunity to, again, progress you towards kind of taking control and empowering yourself to get in charge of your own health. And that's not an easy thing to do. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to forward here to a little bit about what can yoga do for you dealing with MS. So the muscle spasms I know are very common, and I've worked with a lot of different patients with MS, and everybody's experience is different. And again, it varies from day to day, but a lot of what I've seen with my own patients is it reduces muscle spasms. there's been a decrease in both physical and emotional stress. And I think that the physical and emotional are equally important. And one of the most important things that I find you can use yoga for is calming the nervous system. And it's such a huge tool. Beyond any movement I can offer you, I can give you all kinds of movements in layers and modifications to make it more or less challenging. But I'm going to come back every day at the end of the day and tell you it's calming the nervous system. Which, what does that even mean? Let's talk about that a little bit. So when we are living with a chronic illness, your body stays in this stress mode. It stays stuck in the on mode, so to speak. So it's kind of like, think about when you're worried about something or you're busy with something and you've been on the go in your life and you're trying to get things done and you feel frustrated and you're tired. Your body is in this state of what we call the sympathetic nervous system, where we tend to feel stressed and there's a tightness in the chest. The breathing is short, it's rapid, it's shallow. And that causes in itself physical and emotional stress and tension in the body. And that affects our breathing. So we can use breathing techniques to calm that nervous system, to get you out of the sympathetic state and more into what we call the parasympathetic state, which is where most of us should want to try to reside a little bit more, but we don't get the opportunity because life is stressful, because there's a chronic illness going on, because we're busy, we're tired, we're worried, we're dealing with physical and emotional stress. And so that tends to push your nervous system more into that sympathetic state, again, that more flight or fight mode. And when you take on a breathing technique, which I'm going to go over here shortly, that will get you more into that parasympathetic state, which we call that rest and digest. And it's more about restoring and replenishing the body. And who doesn't need more of that? I think everybody could benefit from that, but especially when you're managing something like MS, when you have that chronic illness going on, your body kind of stays in that go mode again, that sympathetic state. So I'd like to show you some things today, both movement and breath, that will help in getting that nervous system kind of out of that mode that it's stuck in. So I want to say that along with the breathing techniques and the movement, it's also about our mindset and being patient with our body. And that's not easy to do. So it's going to be a little bit of taking the time every day to kind of assess where you are and decide what you need in that moment. And that brings me to teaching patience to ourselves. And I myself am kind of an impatient person, and I'm impatient when my body's not agreeing with what I need it to do. So I definitely don't say it lightly. I think it's quite the task, and I think it's a daily practice. I truly do. But helping have patience for yourself will bring us back to this empowering ourselves to regain that sense of control over the mind and the body. It's a small, small tool. It's subtle, but it becomes this huge offering for yourself. So let's talk about this. I kind of just was talking about the nervous system, but I want to review this. So that sympathetic state in the nervous system is what we call the go mode, the fight or flight. And again, anybody that's just been busy, on the go, rushing, you're stressed about something. Right before we were kicking this off today, I was taking some deep breaths because I want to show up and be present for all of you, and I want to make sure I'm giving you guys great information that's going to help you in your day. So I was trying to calm my nervous system a little bit. So we all go through it, whatever it is. But again, when we come back to something like MS, that tends to keep the body in the go mode. It's pushing the nervous system in a direction that keeps us stressed all the time. So if you think about that, and if you're stressed already in life, and then you add in MS, and then you add in the things that you need to get done every day, and how tired you can be, and how frustrated you can be with your body because you never know what your body is going to do, all those things keep piling up, and then it keeps building over the years. And we've now relied and stayed in the sympathetic state for so long that we almost don't even know that we're there anymore, because that becomes our new norm. So we want to try to, if we can, move into, again, that rest and digest, that relaxation response, the parasympathetic state. And that truly comes from breathing. It comes from resting, comes from taking the time to focus more on the breath than the movement. I'd say if you can do anything here today and take this with you, I would say do breathing before you do any movement, and then evolve into the movement. The breathing is going to do more for you than any movement I can offer. As important as these movements are, the breathing will get us to this state where then we can allow our body to receive the movements that you're going to see on here today. So it's a powerful statement to me to say we have the ability to shift our nervous system into a calmer state. That alone right there makes me feel like I have some sense of control, to know that I do have a tool. I do have the ability to talk to my nervous system and to try to invite it to get to a little bit of a calmer place. So a little bit of that yoga and the flight or fight response. Let's talk about this. The brain and the body have natural pain-suppressing abilities. And again, I was saying chronic stress, also the anxiety and the depression that comes from being in chronic stress, can interfere with this process. And the yoga is a mind-body practice that can stimulate the release of the brain's pain-suppressing chemicals. Again, I think that's really powerful. Honestly, when I first started reading about it and then practicing it and then seeing the benefits and the results in my life, I realized that this is a pretty powerful tool. And again, the word yoga can be very misleading. I step away from it not just being these postures that you're going to see, and knowing that this is just kind of scratching the surface here today, just barely. There's a lot that we can do. So again, I ask you to be patient with yourself wherever you're at today when you're first listening to this and looking through these slides. So to come back to what's the breath? What are we doing when we're breathing on a normal basis? We don't even really think about it typically. So most of us are in our chest breathing. We have these shallow, rapid breaths. We a lot of times breathe through the mouth. I don't know anybody that was taught how to breathe growing up. I know I wasn't until I came into my first yoga class and realized that we're not really taught to breathe. It just isn't something that is looked at as important. I think that we're getting there. I think that we're recognizing the value of breathing in a way that can be calming to our body. And honestly, one of the biggest eye-opening things for me was learning that we tend to breathe in opposition to the diaphragm. So we call reverse breathing. So what does that mean? Let's break this down. So anytime we go to a doctor and they put the stethoscope on, one of my examples I always use, and I think about when they say, okay, Kimberly, take a deep breath. I usually take that inhale and I lift up, right, and kind of draw in. And on the exhale, I kind of press everything out. Well, in yoga, one of the breathing techniques that we use, there's various techniques, but what I'm going to talk about with you today is getting out of reverse breathing. So if you think about this, most of us inhale, we draw in, and exhale, we push out. When you take an inhale, naturally, without any effort, your diaphragm descends down. Upon descending down, that pushes then your belly, ribs, and chest out. And when you take the exhalation, the diaphragm ascends back up, and that softens everything in. So if we have been breathing most of our lives in opposition to the diaphragm, meaning we draw in on the inhale and we push out on the exhale, we're moving against our own body. So think about how that can restrict the depth of your breath, right? The volume of the breath, and how that can cause tension. So I'd like to show you ways that you can breathe with your body, in unison with your body, and just that alone can bring some more ease into our body, mind and body, that is. So that's a little bit about what breathing can teach us. So let's look at what this looks like in a diagram here. I love this little flow chart. I use this a lot. I think it really kind of breaks things down in steps of everything that we were just talking about. But let's take it a little deeper because it impacts our entire life, and I think we tend to overlook that. So here we have multiple sclerosis right there in the center, and everything is kind of moving around it. So let's go to the top here and look that we've got chronic pain, and being in a constant state of stress or pain keeps us in that sympathetic system. So you can see chronic pain is above the sympathetic arrow and stress is below it, because those are our two biggest things keeping us there. And pain, right? It can be so many different things. It can surface in so many different ways in the body. And also the stress comes from the pain. The stress comes from just not feeling good on a daily basis, not getting a lot of sleep, our energy not being good, being frustrated with the body, being frustrated that we can't do some of the things that we want to do in the way that we want to do them. All those things compacted, again, keeps you in that sympathetic state, which is just that go mode again. And that lowers our breath capacity. Again, we come back to those shorter breaths, and they're shallow, and we're remaining up in the chest versus getting this full capacity of the breathing, which is incorporating belly, ribs, and chest. And we'll talk about that when we do our breathing exercise. That can, of course, disrupt our sleep, and all of those things can cause inflammation. And inflammation can weaken the immune system. So you can see this little cycle going around, and it's not such a fun cycle, in my opinion. It's a cycle I'd like to help you break. And I truly have seen very positive feedback and results from integrating just a simple breathing technique. So let's try this. I think the best way to learn something for me is to practice it in my own body. So I'll offer for you to get comfortable in some way, whatever that is for you, whether you are sitting up in your chair and just kind of relaxing your shoulders, nice and tall through your spine, or I personally like to lie down. If you're in your bed, you can prop your legs. And I like to prop the legs with a couple of pillows and kind of some sturdy pillows and just support the backs of the knees. That helps usually release the lower back and just helps you not feel like you're holding in your body. So again, whatever comfortable looks like and feels like for you today, do what gives you the most ease in your body, not what makes you feel like you had to work to get there. Because the biggest thing is when we're not working and we're not holding in our body, we're able to focus solely on the breath and actually observe our breathing patterns and what's going on. So once you get comfortable, whether you want to keep the eyes open or closed, it's really up to you. Think about just breathing slowly in and out through your nose. Without changing anything, just put the intention out there to just start to shift the focus to the breath in and out through the nose. We breathe in and out through the nose so that we can start to naturally slow and deepen the breath. And we begin to allow cool air in and warm air out. As it becomes comfortable, on an inhalation, let the belly rise and expand. On an exhalation, let the belly fall and release. If you can stay with that for a few breaths, just start to notice how you feel. Observe the length of your breath in and your breath out. Notice if it's easier to take a longer inhale or a longer exhale. The inhalation often represents what we take on in our life, represents heat and energy. The exhalation is what we're able to let go of in our life, and it represents cooling, calming, letting go. Continue to allow the breath to expand into the belly, ribs, and chest on your inhalation. and emptying the breath from the top of the chest to the bottom of the belly on your exhalation. If your focus drifts, simply bring your concentration back to your breath. You can do that by counting to yourself. How many counts can I inhale comfortably, with ease, and no judgment? And how many counts can I comfortably exhale with ease? See if you can stay with that for a few moments. This is a breathing exercise that we can integrate at any time in our day. I offer for you to try this at least 5 minutes every single day. You can do it to start your day, to increase your energy. You can do it to end your day, to kind of wind down. And again, it's something you can do seated in a chair. It's kind of a good way to start in the morning. I would offer that. You can start it in the bed if you wake up and you're just like still trying to get your energy going and you just want to stay where you are and you're already comfortable, then just stay in your bed and do the breathing. You can always support the legs or not, depending on how you're feeling. You might have a day where you want to get onto the floor and kind of prop your legs there, and we'll talk about that at the end as well. But if you haven't already, maybe consider coming to a seated position. You want to just sit in a chair, make sure it's stable, and this is what we call seated mountain pose. And this is a posture that can be done standing or seated. I'm offering it seated today. It's a great way to start. And let's talk about what the benefits are. This is great for improving your posture. So posture is this huge thing that can be very, very helpful to us. And I teach it in all of my classes. I talk about it on a daily basis because I think that it's something that can be overlooked very easily. So with posture, it's something that we can practice every single day, just sitting up, whether we're watching TV, we're talking to somebody, whether you're standing and talking to somebody, if you're in your car, just any time in your life. I always come back to saying, just look at how you're holding your body. This is going to help you strengthen your spine. It's going to help get your breath moving a little bit more. So think about it. If you're seated and we tend to round the shoulders forward, which most of us do, I tend to sit at a computer a lot throughout the day, or we're on our phones, or whatever we're doing, or we just kind of get tired and we allow our body to kind of hunch and round. It's pretty normal for everyone. It's natural. We don't even think about it. It's just happening every single day. But I'll offer you to just put a little bit of conscious effort into noticing how you sit, how you stand, how you hold your body, and everything that you do. It's just small moments in your day that will really make a huge impact. So think about, you want to sit nice and tall. You want to keep your shoulders softened and relaxed. You want to notice where your head is in space. Are you able to work towards stacking it over your body? And that's something that takes some time. So I'd say even look in the mirror and kind of get a sense of where you are in space, because I think the visual is really helpful. So I tend to stand in front of a mirror and look to see if my head is stacked over my body, to see if I have my head pushed forward or pushed back, if it's tilted to one side versus the other. So work on just kind of getting nice and tall in your body and moving your shoulders back and down so we get out of this rounding that happens for us. And there are a lot of really great tools that I can talk about down the road of how to work more on posture. But for today, let's stick to the seated mountain pose. And it's kind of a staple pose in yoga that we come back to sort of just get in tune with ourselves and see where we're at and just revisit our body and our posture and our breath. So it's a great opportunity, as you can see here under the benefit list, to just check in with your breath and check in with your body, essentially. So I'll offer for you I'm going to advance the slide here so we can get the picture. What is seated mountain pose? You'll see me here sitting, and you want to take your feet about hip width apart. think about trying to stack your knees over your ankles. And why am I asking you to do that? Again, this is going to help create posture here, just more good posture for us, and we can all use a little bit of that. And it's more stable. If you think about your feet are being about hip width apart, your feet are then going to be stacked so that you're stacking all of your joints, and it's going to give a little bit more stability in your body. So even when we're sitting, standing, walking, whatever we're doing in our day, this is always important. So I try to maintain a little bit more hip width apart. And practicing this when I'm sitting is important, because if I'm doing it when I'm sitting, I'm doing it in everything that I do in my life. You can kind of see, hopefully, that I've scooted a little bit forward in my chair. Always make sure you feel stable, you feel safe in what you're doing. You can put the back of a chair to a wall for a little bit more stability. I happen to have it kind of in the center of my mat here, but you can scoot forward enough so that you're not then relying on the chair, and it asks you and invites you to then lift through your spine, and that helps us work our posture again. And I'm just kind of have my hands rested to the tops of my thighs, and I'm sitting up nice and tall, trying to stack my head again over my body. And this is where I might offer for you to just pause before you go into any of these other movements that you're going to see, and focus on just breathing in and out through the nose. And it takes some time to shift to that perspective of breathing, because, again, most of us breathe through our mouth. It's a little bit more challenging to start to breathe through the nose. So give yourself some time and patience. You'll get there. You can start by kind of taking pursed lips, is almost like you're blowing out a candle, to encourage yourself to learn to soften the lips and breathe more through the nose. Because, again, breathing through the nose, it's going to calm the nervous system by naturally lengthening the breath and slowing the breath down. Just that simple practice is going to have a huge effect on your nervous system. So we can just take some time here and just breathe and just kind of gather ourselves and see where we're at. So I offer for you to take maybe about 5 minutes here, or to your comfort, see where you are each day and go from there. And then we're going to add a little bit of rotating the neck here. So cervical rotation, which is simply going to be looking from right to left. And this is going to increase flexibility in the neck. And again, I want to say, where's your starting point? Are you more flexible or more stable in your neck? So think about that when you approach these movements. I'm not with all of you, unfortunately, at this moment. So I'm going to give you a starting point here, and trust that you're going to then stop and listen to your body. If there's anything that's painful, anything that isn't working for you, please stop and pause and maybe consider stepping away from that movement, and maybe that's not the right movement in that moment. But for now, this cervical rotation, again, it's just turning the head from side to side. I'm going to come to this posture here. If you can kind of see, I've given you this 2 pictures here, and it's me in that mountain pose, which is the first pose, and I'm inhaling when I'm here, and then I'm exhaling when I'm turning to one side. And then I'm slowly inhaling when I'm turning back to that center, which is that first picture. And then I'm alternating, and I'm exhaling, and I'm going to the other side. And again, inhaling when I come back to center, that starting point. So I'm offering for you to take that about 6 to 8 times, or to your comfort. So your comfort might mean taking it 3 to 4 times, might be taking it 4 to 5 times. So these are just kind of some standard starting points here. Again, I offer for you to just listen to your body, see how you're feeling, and choose each time you try these postures to see what you really feel like doing and what feels good for you. And then just notice when you turn your head. Do you feel like it's easier to turn to the left or turn to the right? It gives you a little bit of insight and feedback on if you're more open on one side versus a little bit more stable. So we'll move to cat and cow. It's a really famous pose in yoga. And I think it's great because when you see the visual, it reminds me of like a cat when they round up and they stretch their body, right? Or cow, it's the idea of like dropping the belly a little bit. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm approaching it from the seated perspective today. I actually love this one, versus you can be on your hands and knees practicing this. But we're going to take it from the seated position because I think it's a fabulous way to transition, and you get a lot of benefits out of it because it opens and it releases your spine. And you'll kind of see you're basically going through an arch and a rounding in your spine. So I have on here that you can come from a seated position or on your hands and knees. I'm going to stick with seated today if you're okay with that. Let's look at what that is. So again, we're coming back to the seated position. I'm scooted forward on the chair so that I can have a little bit of space for my body to move. And when I inhale, I'm arching the spine, which is called cow pose. And it's just kind of drawing your shoulders back and down, trying to bring the arching more into that upper middle back, more of your thoracic spine. And you decide how much you kind of gaze forward. When I do this, I'm trying to not look up and drop my head back because you want to keep that stability and space in your neck. You don't want to drop the head all the way back. You don't want to pinch the neck and the nerves in any way. So try to make the movement, if you can, from your upper middle back, from that thoracic spine. So trying to take an arch there, which is the opposite of where most of us are in our life, right? That rounding that we have in the shoulders and in the upper back. The exhalation takes you to sliding your hands forward. You can kind of see my hands slide over my knees, and I'm taking a rounding, and that's, again, what we call cat pose. And I go back to the visual if anyone's ever seen a cat stretch before, and they kind of round up their backs. So think about it like that. And again, I offer for you to take this through as many times as comfortable for you. You might take it 4 to 6. You might take it 6 to 8. You'll know when you get in it how you feel and where you want the movement to take you. But again, on the inhale, it's an arch. You move kindly and slowly through the curves of your spine. On the exhale, it's a rounding, a releasing. And be cautious of how much you bring your chin to your chest. You don't need to, on the rounding, draw your chin all the way down. Again, try to keep space in your throat and in your neck when you take these movements. So the movement is more so, again, coming from your thoracic spine if you can, to take a little releasing. Try to not let the movement be from the head looking up and dropping down, even though you're seeing my head look up and release down. So be cautious of that, if you will. Come to a lateral stretch, a side bend here. And this is really important because we don't really do a lot of lateral bending in our day, right? We do a lot of forward bending. A lot of us do, especially if you sit a lot. You're in flexion a lot of the time. And I think it's really important to move the spine in all directions every single day. So this opens the sides of the body, those side ribs. And you heard me talk about a little earlier that we're incorporating the ribs into the breathing because they are part of the breathing process. But what happens is when we're tight in the body because of lack of movement or stress, physical or emotional stress, and we just don't get a lot of movement going on in the ribs, we tend to get really tight and compressed in the ribs, and then the breath can't really move. So again, I come back to when you inhale, your belly and your ribs expand along with the chest, which most of us have the chest breathing down because we live in that mode. But when you're able to take some movement from side to side, whether it's a side bend or a rotation, which you'll see a lot shortly here, you'll notice that you start to open these side parts of the body, these side ribs, and you'll probably notice like, I don't really do this a lot. This isn't a movement that I've done on a regular basis, and it feels pretty good to open the ribs usually. And then the breath can move a little bit more versus stay stagnant in the body. So I love this. It brings breath and movement into the ribs. So I'll have you come back to that mountain pose. And you can do this seated or standing. And we want to come back to hip width apart. And I'm going to advance to the slide here. And I gave you 2 options here because whatever you see on here, I want you to know that there's at least 4 or 5 different ways to do it. Whether it's a different way to do it seated, a different way to do it standing, a way to do it on your back. I have a great side bend that I teach in my classes on the back. So if something you see here doesn't work for you today, don't get discouraged. Just know that it's not the only game in town. There's always something that you can do. So I wanted to at least give you 2 things to think about here. One is if you want the arm extended and just the feeling of reaching the arm above the head. The other is having the hand to the hip. It's a little kinder to the neck and the shoulder. I've also done one where you put your hand behind your head, but I wanted you just to kind of get some 2 perspectives here that can be great. And what I want to say about this is whether you extend your arm or keep it to your hip, you're not going to get more or less movement. So what do I mean by that? Just because I bring my arm up above my head doesn't mean my ribs are opening more. The movement comes from that side bend. It comes from lifting up through your side body. So think about on the inhale, you're going to lift up, sit up nice and tall, like that starting point of mountain pose. On the exhale, you're just going to slide to the side to your comfort. You can hopefully see that my bottom arm it's grabbing the leg of the chair, actually. It could be the leg of the chair, or the seat of the chair. And it's to support you and just make sure you have a little bit more stability. I want you to feel comfortable when you're doing these movements. I want you to feel safe and know that you can be supported while you practice these movements. So again, think inhale, you're lifting up. Exhaling, you're kind of drawing the body to one side. And you're going to alternate from left to right. And again, maybe take it 6 times, maybe take it 8 times. If that feels like a little too much initially, stick with maybe 3 to 4. Again, just pause and listen to your body. And try it. See what you like. You'll know if you want the arm to reach up or if you want the hand to be to the hip. Either way, you're opening those side ribs, and that's going to get the breath moving. So spinal rotation, a twist. This is one of the best things you can do. It just gets yourself moving. It's going to release tension in the spine. It's going to create mobility in the spine. And the more movement we get going, the easier it is for the breath to move. You're going to hear me talk about this breath over and over. That's because I would say it's the most important thing we do all day long. So again, come back to that mountain pose, which is just that seated posture. And you could do this on your back. You could do this standing, but let's take this seated today. And think about, you're going to inhale, lift your spine, and exhale, you see me kind of turning towards you there. So I'm turning to my right, and I'm reaching my right arm back through the chair. It could be to the outer part of the chair. It could be just to wherever your arm goes naturally. And my opposite arm, my left arm, is just coming to either my left or my right thigh. It really doesn't matter. You'll know what's comfortable for you. Don't worry about reaching and taking a huge range of motion. It's the smallest movements that we take that sometimes have the largest impact, so keep that in mind. I then come back on an inhale when I'm ready, and then I exhale, twist to the other side. And I'm just moving with my breath. I'm inhaling when I come back to center. I'm exhaling when I rotate. And you just want to move with the pace and rhythm that feels comfortable, feels like it brings you ease. As you alternate through these movements from side to side, don't feel like you only get one inhale or one exhale per movement. You might inhale and then exhale, twist. You might pause and take a breath or so. Then you might come back on your next inhale and pause, and then rotate on your next exhale. So go at a pace that feels good for you. The more time you take to pause and breathe, the more you're going to slow the body down, and that's going to slow that nervous system down. So again, take as many breaths and movement here as feels comfortable for you. And I say that for everything that we're doing. Spinal balance, this is a great one because it increases strength and stamina in the body. It strengthens the core. We know the core is a huge thing that we talk about all the time. You hear it all over the place. You know, people are doing ab work left and right to keep their core up. And the core isn't just the abdominal muscles, right? It's going to be your abdominal muscles. It's going to be your legs. It's going to be your spine. It's going to be using your glutes. So there's a lot of great benefits here. And it's just going to help keep the body strong. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Again, we're approaching it from the seated perspective. I love this one. It looks, it's so much, you know, it can be so challenging, and it looks so simple, I think, to a lot of people. But this is a really challenging pose because you have to maintain your posture. You're trying to sit up tall and kind of keep that mountain pose while trying to balance. So your abs have to really be recruited here. They have to be used here to help support you. So I did put in here in the instructions that you could do this seated on your back or from your hands and knees. So a lot of different ways to approach this. So keep that in mind if you're kind of thinking down the road of something that you'd like to add into this. But I want to approach it here from the chair and show you some great ways you can be in a chair and you can do some fabulous movements, and they have the exact same benefits as anyone else getting down on the floor. So there's me in that seated mountain pose again. And I have my hands to the chair. You can see, again, it could either be the seat. I have my hands kind of on the legs of the chair. It's just where my arms happen to drop comfortably. And again, I'm maintaining posture. So in maintaining your posture, you may not be able to bring your leg up as high as I am here. That was hard for me to do. It doesn't look maybe like it's that hard for me, but it actually is. It's a lot of work. And I'm inhaling when I lift my left leg up, and I'm exhaling when I bring my leg down. Here's the key. When I exhale, I'm going to draw my belly in. So you won't be able to do as much belly breathing in that moment. It's going to be more of a contracting your abs in, kind of belly to spine, which is kind of like when you do a sit-up, right? We've all seen these sit-ups over the years. So I'm keeping my posture up, and I'm inhaling, alternating, lifting one leg up. Exhaling when I bring it down, I'm drawing my belly to my spine, meaning I'm contracting my abdominal muscles to help support my body to control the movement down. So again, inhale when you lift one leg, exhale when you bring it down. And it doesn't matter if you bring it up just an inch or two. Maybe the next week you'll bring it up a little bit more. It's not how far you come in these poses. It's not, how long you hold a pose. It's that you're moving in a way that's comfortable and safe. You're getting something beneficial out of it, and you feel good in doing it, and that you're able to breathe comfortably while you're doing these movements. And the most challenging thing will probably be, honestly, combining the breath with the movement, because you can either focus on breathing or you can focus on moving. And I'm asking you to sort of synchronize and move and breathe sort of in unison so that the breath supports the body. And that's very challenging. So if you find that that's what's challenging for you, you're not alone. It's very, very normal. So keep that in mind and come back to patience. And again, I put down, I believe, about 6 to 8 reps here, but I just want you to take as many as is comfortable for you. Plank to Cobra, I mentioned earlier, planks are kind of a famous pose in yoga. We hold planks. It's famous in fitness classes. You've probably heard of these plank challenges that go on all over the country, and people are holding planks for as long as they can hold them, to build their strength and stamina. So we're going to approach plank in a different way, and this is one of my favorite ways to play in this pose because it is extremely challenging. If you would like it to be, you can put some resistance into it, and you're doing as much work as anybody else that's on the floor holding a plank pose. So that being said, it strengthens the arms and the core, your abdominals, your spine, your legs. Let's talk about how we approach this. So here's 2 postures here. And again, I'm in the seated posture. I'm sitting a little bit forward to allow my spine to sit up tall. I'm going to bring my arms out in front of me on an inhale. That's your plank pose. On your exhale, when you pull your arms back and you draw your elbows to your sides, this is really going to bring us into, it's kind of a chaturanga/cobra that I'm giving you here. And I'm drawing my belly to my spine when I do this. So I'm pushing out on the inhale, nice, long, deep inhale. And I'm drawing back slowly on the exhale. You can put a little resistance into it if you want to add a little bit to it. And if you've ever seen somebody do a push-up, right? So if I inhale and I push out, extend the arms, nice and tall through the spine, exhale nice and easy. It's like I'm doing a push-up down to the floor, and then pulling back ends me essentially in what we call a cobra pose. So again, I'm going to have you inhale when you push out, and exhale, draw the belly to the spine as you draw the elbows towards you. And that can be a strengthening movement. Depends on how much resistance you put into it. Either way, just the act of keeping the spine upright and moving the arms and building a little bit of strength and movement. And when you pull your elbows back, you're going to feel your shoulders. You're going to feel your shoulder blades kind of slide in and down, and you're working your back just in that moment along with your arms. So keep that in mind. And your legs are doing a lot of work to support you. And I'm still trying to keep my feet hip-width apart and stacked, so that stays consistently through all of these movements. And chest expansion is really just going to be kind of an evolution from what we just came from, because we're going to reach our arms to the chair behind us. And again, you could do this standing, but I'm having you kind of reach back to the chair because it just kind of gives you some feedback and something to reach towards. And this is going to open the chest and the upper back and kind of release from the movement that we just did, which was plank to cobra. And it's just going to create more space for the breath to move, because again, the more we break up the tension and the stress in our upper back, our neck, our shoulders, our ribs, the more the breath is going to expand and kind of work with you and for you instead of against you. So chest expansion, sitting up nice and tall, maintaining that posture, and you're just going to inhale, reach back, and you're just going to exhale, relax into the posture, and let this be a pause. Let this be an opportunity for you to just focus on your breath and just breathing deeply in and out through the nose. And you'll take several breaths here. It might be 6 to 8. That feels like a little too much on any particular day. Maybe take 4 deep breaths. 1 breath is in this posture is better than nothing at all. So take this in small steps and just pause and use it to check in before you go to the next movement, which the next movement is going to look familiar because we did it a couple slides back. We're going to move back into a rotation, a spinal twist, because I think twists are great. And we basically just did a movement of opening the back, opening the chest, and we're going to rotate to kind of realign our spine, get back to a neutral place before we do something that is a forward bend. So again, this mountain pose is going to be like one of your best friends. It's a great pose to come back to. It's a staple pose in yoga. If you've ever seen people standing like at the top of their mat in yoga and they're standing in this pose that we call mountain pose. Again, it's the feet hip width apart and stacking the joints, right? Knees over ankles. If you were standing, it would be hips over knees. And we're going to take maybe 4 deep breaths, just alternating from side to side. So here I am again. So rotating from side to side. And again, you could add the arms here. I don't have the option here, but envision that you inhale, bring your arms up to the sky, and then exhale when you turn, then you reach your arms out to the side. Or you could stay with hands to your sides and lift up through your spine in the inhale and rotate on the exhale. When you're feeling good and you want to bring your arms up, you have the option to bring your arms up halfway, like shoulder height on the inhale, and then rotate on the exhale. You have the option to bring your arms overhead, reaching all the way up, or to wherever that takes you, whatever overhead means for you on the inhale, and rotating to the other side on the exhale. So again, I'm taking this maybe about 4 to 6 times. Take a few breaths. You can pause and just twist and stay in it. If you don't want to alternate from side to side, that's kind of a good option because you did the twisting from side to side to kind of warm up the body previously a few slides back. So what I might do is just stay here and take a few breaths on each side, kind of soak up that twist, and then go to the other side and stay for several breaths. So again, you have the option to alternate, or you can stay on each side for several breaths. See what comes up for you, and it's going to change, trust me. And the supported forward bend, I like forward bends, so they feel good for releasing my spine and stretching my hamstrings. I like the idea of just getting a little bit more length in the spine with the chair, which is what you're going to see in a moment. There's a couple ways to do this, but typically it's releasing tension in your lower back and your legs. And seated or standing, you'll see here, and I'm going to show you 2 of my favorite ways to do a forward bend versus standing straight up and then just bending forward, which we've all seen this, right? And everyone's trying to bring their hands to the floor, and we're kind of frustrated if we don't get our fingertips to the floor because then we think we're not good at what we're doing, which is not true. So the one on the right is with hands on a chair, and you'll see I flipped the chair when I stood up, and I put the chair at the wall. The reason is I want you to have as much stability as you can and feel like the chair is not going anywhere. And the best way to do that is to put the chair at a wall if you have some space. I came up higher here. I put my hands on the top of the chair. And I did that. You can see, hopefully, a nice straight spine here. And it's giving me a lot of length and traction in my spine. And I'm also stretching the backs of my legs, my hamstrings, and all the way down through my heels because I'm standing here. And because I took this height, my hips and shoulders are on the same plane. And again, that's encouraging my spine to get out of a deep rounding in your upper middle back and still practicing posture. And that movement there alone helps me breathe a little bit easier because my spine is nice and long here. So you can always bring your hands to the top of a table, a desk, a chair like I'm doing. You could go lower on the chair if you wanted to, but I'm sticking with this today. I really like this. This is my favorite one. The one on the left is if you choose to stay in the chair and you still want the benefit of a forward bend, you would just exhale, fold forward, bring your hands under your thighs. If you felt comfortable and safe, you could bring your hands to the floor beneath you. If bringing your hands to the floor doesn't work, put a couple of books or blocks or something that's stable on the floor. Bring your hands there. You don't have to bring your hands to meet the floor. It's just what feels good for you. And I'm just relaxing here and taking a few deep breaths. Again, in and out through the nose. And you can stay for as long as it's comfortable for you. I caution when you come up to come up slowly, carefully, and with your breath, because sometimes when we come forward, we can get a little dizzy. Depends on how we're feeling. But I have days like that where I'm a little dizzy. If you were dizzy or nauseous, I wouldn't say to just drop quickly into a forward bend. You also want to be careful, what's going on in the body in general. blood pressure, all that stuff. Just make sure you're feeling good and you're feeling strong on that particular day and that you're supporting yourself properly so that you don't feel uneasy in this pose or moving out of it. But I always move people carefully and slowly out of this pose because your head is hanging and you're inverting. So be cautious of that, of how you feel, if you will. And a seated hamstring release, this is such a nice pose because there's so many ways to do this, and there's all these fancy ways we've seen in magazines and in videos and all kinds of stuff, or in classes if you've walked into a yoga class before. But this is a great way to do it, and I'm sure we've seen this before. I'm using a strap here, and you could use anything that has some length and that you have at home. You don't have to go out and buy any props. We all have everything that we need at our house. We just have to kind of look for some things and see what we can use. So just get something with some length if you don't have a yoga strap lying around. But this is a good release for your hamstrings and for your spine. And again, posture. We're going to hear me say it again. So let's look at what this looks like. So you can see me sitting up tall. I did 2 visuals here because I wanted to kind of have you see me face forward, sitting up nice and tall. There's the working posture. I have the strap hooked over the foot. I know for some of you, maybe hooking the strap over the foot might feel like a task on its own. So move the leg close towards you, step on the strap, and then slowly inch the leg out while you hold the strap with your hands. And I've worked with a lot of people with this, and it can be done. You just have to be patient with yourself. So if it doesn't seem easy for you, again, just, don't beat yourself up about it. Just give yourself some time and just know that you'll get there. And different variations. So you'll see the side by side, the one on the right, I chose to kind of hinge forward at my hips, which does help me release my spine a little bit. I feel like I can release my low back if you can see that angle I'm at, but I'm still kind of keeping along the spine. And as I come forward, I'm just keeping one hand on my leg and the other hand has the strap. And I'm just kind of flexing and pulling the foot towards me, meaning my heel is down and my toes are up. You do not have to flex the foot. For some of you, maybe flexing the foot will be challenging and you don't feel like that's something you can do. You can still do the pose. It's the same pose, I promise. So just take several breaths here, and then you would want to switch sides. And what is several? Several can be 2 or 3. It could be 4 to 6. You'll know when you get there. You'll feel the stretch, and if it feels really good and you want to stay here, stay for as long as you feel comfortable. But again, focus on the breath. Don't forget to breathe. We're never holding our breath, even when we're holding a pose. We're continuously breathing in and out. So let's see what we have next. We have windshield wipers. This is one of my favorites because it's a release for your lower back, your lumbar spine, and your hips. So this can be done, let's go right to it, on the floor. If getting down on the floor is something you want to do, if it's not, lay in your bed, right? Especially in the morning, it's a good way to kind of wake up the body, or it's a good way to wind down. It can be, used at any time, but hopefully you can see my feet are as wide as the edges of my mat. So this is where I'm taking you out of hip width apart. So take your feet wider if you can, because it's going to give you more space to move. And I have a blanket under my head because I tend to want a little support under my neck, so I just have a little blanket there. It's going to depend for you how you feel when you lay flat on your back. And I'm just dropping my arms out to the side, turning my palms up. Hopefully you can see that helps move my shoulders down. It gives me a little opening across my chest, and my upper back releases to the floor a little bit more, and again increases your good posture here. And I'm just basically, the inhale is where is the first picture, as you can see. The second picture is exhale. I'm dropping from side to side. And I'm just rolling to the outer edges of the feet. My knees happen to come to the floor here. That's not necessary. All I want you to do is just kind of drop to one side, wherever it takes you. You could always put something like a pillow on each side, so you drop into the pillow on the exhalation versus worrying about dropping to the floor. So don't worry about that. Again, it's not the range of motion that you take. It's where can you come in every movement that feels comfortable for you without pushing in a way that you feel it's strenuous. And again, you're just going to alternate from side to side, as many breaths as comfortable. And you can take 6 to 8 breaths, 4 to 6, and you can stay here for several breaths on each side and kind of soak up the stretch. Personally, I go from side to side at least 4 to 6 times. Again, it's inhale, up, exhale, drop, Inhale back to center, exhale, drop. And then I stay on each side and maybe take 4 or 5 deep breaths. That's what works for my body, but see how you're feeling. And the most important, the best pose ever in yoga is what we call Shavasana, which is just final relaxation, and it's called rest and relax. And it's replenishing the mind, the body, coming back to the nervous system. You guys, rest and digest. The more we can get our nervous system in agreement with our body and getting on board with not staying in that fight or flight mode, we can get out of the breath being restricted. We can get out of relying on chest breathing. We can access the full capacity of our breath. This helps decrease pain. The more we can relax the muscles, relax the body, the more we can start to support the body and ease some of the pain. And some of the tools you can use, other than these movements, for relaxation, you can use meditation. There's some great meditation apps out there. The one I like is called Insight Timer. It's a free app. You can put it on your phone, and you can just play it anytime and sort of customize it to what you want, anything from like a 2-minute meditation to a 10-minute and upwards. So that's something that I like to listen to before I go to bed at night, because I get kind of stressed out in life too, just like anyone. And yoga teacher or not, I have to kind of self-talk every day and get myself focused on the breath. So I really believe we can change our experience with MS through these movements and through the breath more than anything. So that being said, I would say you want to bring yourself to a comfortable position, whether it's coming back to that initial seated mountain pose that we did in the very beginning, or laying on your bed. I would encourage if you can lay in your bed and do this, and here's why. When you start this practice, sitting up tall, encouraging your posture, getting ready for a movement practice, a yoga practice with movement, because yoga doesn't have to mean movement, right? It can mean breathing, it can be meditation, it could be doing a visualization, it could be just taking time for ourselves to replenish. So if we are preparing for the movement side of yoga, what we call asana, sitting up and getting into the breath makes sense to me. When you're winding down from a movement practice or the evening, or you just need to replenish throughout the day, if you can lay either in your bed, support your legs with some pillows, several pillows, get your legs kind of 90 degrees if that's comfortable, or if you're able to get on the floor, put your legs on a chair at 90 degrees, you won't have to hold the spine up. And you can get stress and tension even out of your neck, your shoulders, and your back, and especially your legs. It helps you get a little inversion by elevating the legs. That increases our circulation. That gets us out of the lower extremities. If you're sitting more often than you would like to be sitting, this is a great way to move, get the blood moving, circulating, move the breath, and again, get out of your lower extremities, that lower body, more into the upper extremities. Inversions are really good for us to do. And inversion for me is plopping my legs on a chair, which you'll see in a moment, or it could be supporting my legs with, several pillows on my bed, on the floor. But if you can lay comfortably and support the body, you won't have to hold the body up. The spine doesn't have to work. The shoulders, the neck does not have to work to hold up the head. And you can really focus on the breath and nothing else. And that's where you're going to see the change in the body. So we're going to come back to that breathing exercise. And we are taking some time to just come back to breathing in and out through the nose. Come to that slide there. Sorry about that. And you can see I've got my legs supported on a chair. I was able to get down on the floor and prop my legs up, so that worked for me. If not, visualize you're just kind of laying in your bed. If you're already there, it makes sense to do. And I'm closing my eyes here, just trying to let the body not feel like it's working. And we need to have times where the body isn't working, because maintaining your body and managing this chronic illness, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Even when you're not actively doing something, you're working very hard in your body and in your mind. So this is an opportunity to, again, come back to breathing in through the nose, belly, ribs, and chest expand, and slowly out through the nose. Allow yourself to empty the breath from the top of the chest to the bottom of the belly. Maybe even place your hands on your belly and feel yourself move the breath up into the hands on the inhalation. Feel that full expansion of the breath. And release down away from the hands on your exhalation, as if you're letting your lower back just kind of settle to what's beneath you. And see if you can stay with that for at least 3 to 5 minutes. You can work up to 5 minutes. That's fantastic. The more you can stay here and take care of your body, the more benefits you're going to see. If you could do this every single day for 5 minutes, it'll make a difference. And again, come back to counting. How many counts do I comfortably breathe in and out for? Do you notice if it's easier to take an inhalation or an exhalation? While you're here, try to allow the muscles of the face to just soften and release. Unclenching the teeth. Relax the jaw. Release the tongue from the top of the mouth. Soften the lips. And allow yourself to gradually begin to focus on taking a longer exhalation to calm and cool the body. The more we focus on taking the longer exhalation, the more we'll be able to relax mind and body. So maybe if you're able to inhale for a count, maybe try to exhale for 2. So just try to maybe double whatever you're doing for the inhalation, take a little bit longer exhalation. And just work up to that. Now, it might be a half a count more in the exhalation to start. Then you might work towards a full count. And then you might eventually get to 2 counts in and 3 counts out. But for now, stick with a count in and a count and 2 counts out. And see what that feels like for you. And I'm just going to kind of close with how we can use this to change our experience with illness. So just to kind of take a little summary here, the breathing is going to be the most essential thing that you can do, and it's something you can integrate every day at any time. Come back to your breath, check in when you're getting stressed, check in when you're nervous, you're anxious, when you're tired. Notice your breathing pattern. So notice, are you breathing more in your chest? Are you breathing through the nose, through the mouth? Do you feel like a rapid, shallow breath? Do you feel that you can expand the belly on the inhale and release on the exhale? Can you incorporate more of the ribs into your breathing practice? And just tend to notice. You'll notice your triggers in life when you stop and listen to your breathing, and then you can incorporate some of these techniques, and that will change how you're feeling. Relaxation comes from the breathing, also from the movement. Sometimes the movement helps us free up what's going on in the body so we can relax. Meditation is a great one. Again, that meditation app that I mentioned is just one that I like to work with. It's called Insight Timer, and I can put that information up at some point if you guys are interested in that, and it's just an application you can put on your phone and listen to. But as we slowly integrate some of these practices, the body and the mind will become a more comfortable place to be. And a little diagram, I love diagrams, so let's change it up. In the beginning, we had one where it was talking about all the things that happen when we're stressed, when we're chronically ill, when we're depressed, we're losing sleep, the body's inflamed. So what if we changed that perspective? And what if we integrated this breathing? We might add movement, we might not, depends on the day, but I would say always add some breathing in. You can always do that. The breathing increases our relaxation. That increases getting us into the parasympathetic state, that rest and digest, that relaxation response we need more of. That in turn helps reduce our stress and decreases pain. So I don't know about you, but I like this diagram a little bit more than I like the first one because this is a little bit more positive, and I like to feel like there's some hope in feeling better and managing an illness. and feeling a little bit more like yourself every day. And what do you need to start? Just a quiet space, anywhere where you can just get away from noise, from distraction. Please try to turn your TV off and just be by yourself if you can. Have a few minutes, even if it's just 5 minutes, just so you can breathe, you can focus, you can think. It's important to take time for ourselves and replenish. A chair, right? Just make sure it's stable. Maybe put it against a wall if that feels a little bit more comfortable for you. Like I said earlier, a strap or something equivalent with just some length that you feel like you can kind of grip if you need to, if you're going to do that. If you want to do it without the strap, ditch the strap, you guys, and just put your leg out in front of you and flex your foot towards you, or kind of push your heel down and pull your toes towards you, right? Or just straighten the leg out, and you can even kind of lean forward from there if you're not going to use a strap. But if you could integrate any of this between 5 and 15 minutes per day, and it might not be 15 minutes in total. You might do 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon, 5 minutes in the evening. Break it up. Listen to your body. I think smaller incremental practices throughout the day makes more sense. Again, you're breathing all day long, so why not take the time to put a little bit of conscious effort into how you're breathing and apply that. But if you're going to add some movement, add the movement with the breath. Please put the breath into your practice versus just moving, because it's pretty mechanical if you're just moving. It just becomes exercise, truthfully, which exercise is great and we all need it, but we should be breathing when we exercise too, right? So any kind of movement that you're doing, please let the breath be the forefront of that movement, of that practice. And again, a few minutes every day, break the 15 minutes up a few times a day. That's actually better for MS, honestly, because you don't want to overheat, as we know. We don't want to overwork. That stresses out the nervous system as well, right? So keep that in mind. And so again, begin by spending 5 minutes a day breathing through the nose. As it becomes a little bit more familiar, you'll work towards maybe spending 5 to 8 minutes focusing on the breath. It gets easier, get more comfortable with it, but there's no set amount of time required. You just have to let your body decide what you need and when you need it. And I just want to say a few things here as we're wrapping this up. This is about adapting yoga to our bodies. It's not about doing fancy poses, right? Nothing crazy, standing on your head. Like there's just no need. You don't have to twist yourself into a pretzel, nothing that feels like it's not comfortable for you. I really want you to make this about your body. And I like to use lots of props to support the body. And you can use blankets, you can use bolsters, which are just yoga pillows, basically, as I call them. Pillows that you have in your house, chairs, the wall. You saw me kind of push the chair to the wall. That's, again, just barely scratching the surface. There's a lot of cool things we can do with the wall. A lot of things you can do with straps and blocks, if you've ever seen what yoga blocks look like. There's a lot of things that you can use, and I use all of these props on a daily basis in my own personal practice, and it's phenomenal. Most important is just taking the time to rest when you need it. Listen to what your body is telling you. You honestly know your body better than anyone else, right? You live in this body every day. You know what it's like to feel good, to not feel good, so you know what's going on. So just pay attention, and even with the stuff that I'm sharing with you here, do what feels good for you. And focus on your breath. At the end of the day, focusing on your breath is just the most important thing you can do. And just begin exactly where you are. Take those short breathing breaks. Add small, gentle movements with the breath. And again, listen to your body so you can make choices that support you where you are in the moment. And as I say, small victories, meaning small steps every single day. It might be one small thing that feels good for you that day. That's a victory in itself. If you did 5 minutes of breathing, that's a victory. Maybe you do one pose with breath the next day or the next week. That's a victory. So let's find small things to be grateful for that help us feel good about what we're doing so we can feel successful in what we're doing. And I just want to share with you one last thing. It's just a quote from BKS Iyengar, and he's very famous for bringing yoga into this country. And I just think it's such a beautiful saying here. It's yoga teaches us to cure what need not be endured and endure what cannot be cured. Thank you guys for joining me.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. That was absolutely terrific. That was an incredible amount of information and very instructive. And I love the aspect of breathing and how simple that is and how easy it is to incorporate into our daily life and how effective it really can be.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed sharing it. I know that this is probably a lot of information, so I just want to offer real quick for everybody just to take some time, review it several times, take it piece by piece. There was a lot of information coming out of me this morning, so just take your time and take it all in slowly, and don't let yourself get overwhelmed by it, but just take one thing that resonated with you today and stick with it, and that's what I would focus on. But thank you so much just for having me here, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you again. We really appreciate Kimberly's time today for this insightful program and definitely introducing us to the physical and emotional benefits of incorporating yoga into our daily wellness plan. As you can see here on the screen, we added some resources for people. They can check out more information on yoga and Kimberly, and people can also contact our organization at mymsaa.org or give us a call at 1-800-532-7667. On behalf of Kimberly and everyone at MSAA, thank you so much for watching.